Hi and welcome to this video in the MRDCL Understanding Concepts series. In this video we're going to look at reserved variable names. Now reserved variable names are not something that perhaps many users ever worry about, but it's something that's available in MRDCL that allows you some quite clever tricks that you can perform. What reserved variable names are variables that MRDCL automatically creates and runs for you or controls for you whenever you run an MRDCL run. It also means you can't use these variable names for any other purpose, although you can actually reset them if you want to. There's probably only 2 or 3 that most users regularly use, but let's have a look at some of them just to get a picture of what they are and actually just show you how to find out about them. So in the help section, if we go to contents and the user guide and select variables, you'll find here there's a section down the end here called reserved variable names. If we open that up, you'll see it lists all the variable names that are automatically generated and have some use and produced for you when you run MRDCL. The one that probably is the most common one that many users will have come across already is a variable called IOBS. Now that's a variable that MRDCL automatically generates based on the serial number setting that you put at the top of your STP file. So that's one that many users would have come across. So if your serial number is in the first 4 fields, you might say serial number in columns 1-4, comma, then there'd be a variable called IOBS that would hold that value of the serial number as it is in fields 1 to 4. Another one that's fairly common and is useful to use is XIR. That counts when you're running edit checks or reports the number of edit checks that are failed. So that'll be check statements or edit list statements or edit statements. It'll increment by 1 for each time an error is encountered. So when you get to the end of a record, if XIR has a value of 5, it means there's 5 things that it's failed on as it's gone through the data stage of your script. Now there's many other different settings here. The set that are probably quite useful are this set here that begin XER. These increment by 1 each time different types of errors are found. And that's quite useful, I find, if I'm trying to debug things sometimes and I want to know the number of errors. I might know, for example, that in a run, the number of times I expected to divide by 0 might be 5 times on a run that I run every month. If that ever stepped up to 6, I could set some alert to myself and put a message out, perhaps at the bottom of a run, or stop my run if DZ was greater than 5, for example. I could stop my run. So you could just literally put that piece of code in your data at the bottom of your data stage saying if $XIR DZ / greater than 5, comma, stop, comma, that would stop the run and stop it going on to running tables. Another one I find quite useful is the XCNT series. XCNT-SD is quite useful. It counts how many times you've passed through start data, so it knows the position in the file that you're reading. That's certainly very useful if you ever have any data with no serial number. I don't recommend that, but if you happen to get a data set with no serial number, you could refer to the 10th record in the file by saying if XCNT-SD /10 define, or whatever it is you want to define or set for that particular record in the file. So that sets the record in the file. If you've got complex projects where you're reading from 2 data streams, from a file A and a file B, XCNT-CA and XCNT-CB are very useful because they keep account of how many records you've read or lines you've read from each of the 2 input files. So that's something that again I use. And indeed the XCNT-WA works the same with the write statement. It'll tell you how many times you've written records away. And that is quite useful if you're punching data out. There's a variable for that that's generated called XCNT-PA and PB if you're punching out to do different output streams. So these variables are quite useful. In most cases you won't use them. Probably not more than IOBS, XIR, and perhaps XCNTSD, but they just give you some more tools that you can use for controlling your runs, reacting to runs. One that I have used sometimes is XIR, where if XIR is greater than 0 for any particular record, it will not write that record to the IDF. But if you put a line of code before finish data, assuming you haven't got write commands, or before your write commands, and say define integer XIR equals 0, it will then override the count that it's made as it's gone through the checks and still write your record away. So that's a little cheat that you can use if you want to still write records away to the IDF, even though they may have failed some checks. So that's where those list of reserved variable names are. I recommend that you read them if you want to sort of get into the real depths of MRDCL. Thank you.